You are listening to the Chits and Giggles podcast.
Hello and welcome to another Chits and Giggles podcast. I'm Russell, and today I'm joined in person again by Ben, but also via the magic of the internet, Dave. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
David. Hey, Russell.
Well, it's good to hear you, Dave. It's been a little bit of a while, but we've got a good podcast for you guys today, you listening. First of all, we have a chit which is all about the long game, which is why the name of this podcast is The Long Game, funnily enough. And that's mainly kind of touching on the fact, obviously these days quite popular, you have all of these longer campaign style games, but also games that actually are basically strategy epics, you know. So we'll go into that a bit more detail later on. And then also we have a little giggle for you as well, which is a twist on a game we've done before. So I hope you're excited about this. Yes.
Ben versus David.
Ben versus David.
Uh-oh.
Remember the last time
this
that
never goes well.
David,
Don't. I'm still.
There was
I still have
accusations
nightmares.
of cheating and all sorts of
Yeah, hopefully we won't have that today.
Terrific.
Or maybe we do. Maybe it makes for a good podcast.
I still maintain that it was a tie, the last one.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
I'll
this
take a
is
tie.
going to be
That's
the
fine with me.
tiebreaker.
Yeah.
This is the tiebreaker.
Don't
But
make
that's
it that.
for later on.
Let's just
So-
leave that one as a tie, and we can start fresh today. Let's just.
Whatever
Turn that
you
leaf,
say,
shall we?
Whatever you say, it's definitely a tiebreaker. Anyway, let's get to the meat or the main course of the podcast and talk about the long game. Now, I'm assuming you guys know you've played some long games, right?
Sure have.
Yeah.
I've played with you, Russell. I've played a long game.
So any game's a long game with
Yeah.
Russell playing.
Yes, right.
What's probably the longest game you've played? And you can take that in any sense that you want.
Oh, the longest game I've played by far is Diplomacy. If you play it in one session, it's about 8 hours, but usually we would play it over weeks. We would play for about 2 to 3 hours once a week for about 4 weeks.
That I've never played Diplomacy.
The thing is, it's my number one game, my
Whoa.
favourite game, but it's impossible to play because you have to convince people to play for the long haul.
Like, how many players does it need to play, like, well?
5 is probably the minimum to get a good game.
But it goes up to...
7 or 8. It's been that long since I've played it.
Wow,
Goodness me.
that's quite a lot. So I'm kind of curious about it, and I would play it once, I think. But the fact that it's all negotiations and having to keep track of what you're doing
But
and trying to
think of
like
it-
mislead people,
Think of it more almost as a role-playing game.
like the Megagame.
Yeah, like a mega game. If you think of it like that, it's a completely different experience then because it's not so much...
About winning.
I like that it's like a
Well-
very minuscule version
Yeah,
of a mega game.
it's-
It's pretty cool
it's-
that you can have that
Yeah,
similar
that's how.
experience
That's
in
why
your house.
a mega game you can just complete with your friends in a day, and adopt a character, put on costumes.
Put on
Yes.
costumes.
Yes.
Totally put on costumes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm in.
What is it? Offensive stereotype costumes?
No. The main
Russell.
reason I suggest putting on costumes is because when you inevitably stab someone in the back,
Oh.
it's easier to not hate someone if they did it as a character.
If
as
they're
opposed
wearing
to
a silly hat.
is-
yeah, because he was wearing a newspaper pirate hat. I forgive him.
Done.
I forgive him.
Done.
Well,
I think that should apply in
it's
all
nice-
walks of life.
What about you, Dave? What's the longest game you've ever played?
Oh, well, I love a legacy game, me. So those are obviously huge at the moment. So we're currently coming to the last few games of Seafall, which has been a wild ride. It's a roller coaster. I'll have a review of that soon, but it's a lot of ups and a lot of downs. I know. Have you started yours, Russell? Are you playing Seafall? I think.
I haven't, no, but I do plan to play it at some point in the future because, not to get into a Seafall thing, because I believe you have something to say on that matter shortly. on
Yes,
the website,
indeed.
so look
We
forward
should
to
have.
seeing
In the
that.
next week or two, we should be finishing up our game, and I'm really looking forward to see what Seafall has got in store for us. So that should
Yes.
be cool. So yeah, it's been I think we've been playing that for several months, so it's a proper long game, that, like most of the legacy experiences. And the one I've just started now, which is really interesting, because it's a whole another kettle of fish in the sense that the game isn't even done yet. It just keeps going, which is Arkham Horror, the card game. Oh!
Hooray!
I can't believe you got into another LCG, Dave.
Oh, don't. It's such a weird version of an LCG as well, because it's like a cooperative LCG. And I know this has happened with Lord of the Rings before, hasn't it? I've not played it myself, but
Yeah.
I think it's a similar sort of system. But obviously, having a Lovecraft game that's good, oh my. There was something else. So I thought I needed to dive in, and yeah, it's captured me pretty quickly. But I like the fact that the reason this is an LCG is not only because you can expand your deck as each game goes on, but each pack you get is another part of the story. So you're buying essentially the next chapter, which I think is really cool. I really like that. That not only am I buying, to expand my deck, but I get
I have
snippet.
something to say on this point because
Go on.
I kind of touched on it in the review because I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to work when I wrote the review. But essentially, it's like telling a story. But these like expansion packs or these scenario packs, they're kind of like B plots. They don't actually contribute.
No,
They do tell you information, but they don't carry on with the same, because essentially you can play each of the bits as any characters, right?
Well, the idea is that you're meant to play through the first box, which is the first campaign, and then you start what's called the Dunwich Legacy, and that starts with like a big pack which has two stories in it. But then each of the next 6 packs all tell you the next part of the story. So if you want to, you can play through that campaign of 8 stories as one overarching, same investigators all the way through, and you're getting bonuses to build your deck as you go through. Now, horrible things might happen to you, which is the way of Arkham Horror, that investigators will probably die, so you're going to have to rebuild and build new things in there. But it wouldn't be a Lovecraft game if it wasn't for the constant fear of the horrors that were about to lurk forth from hell dimensions. Go on.
The game is fairly small in size. Why didn't they just release all of it at once? Why are they dripping it out as an LCG? Yet, from what it sounds like, what you're saying,
that's the main
definitely
reason.
a money issue.
What it sounds like, LCGs normally is like with Netrunner, there's extra cards that come up that you put in your deck, and so that when you play the game, you can build your deck. But if these are continuing on with the story, surely they should have just released it all at once as a bigger game.
Well, the thing is, you do get a sense of satisfaction from completing the campaign pack that you get in the first box. You do still get that like end thing, like you do get to the end and you get a resolution of sorts.
Yep.
And essentially, it's like, think of it like the first of a trilogy. Like you complete that first book, that film or book. Actually, books come in trilogies as well. And then you do get that sort of like satisfaction. Okay, but there is more to the story. Like
I understand there's more to the story, but there's more to the story released in multiple tiny little packs that you have to then go to the shop and buy and wait.
This is one of my issues with the game, is the fact is you don't have to buy them like at all, because they are separate. Like that's what I meant by this, like a B plot. You may play the main plot, but then these extra packs that you buy that are just scenario packs, they're kind of like a side story, which doesn't really have a massive impact on the main story, to my knowledge.
So how replayable is the base game?
Really replayable. I played it many times with so many different groups already, and you can play it solo as well, which is always a fun little challenge if you're into that sort of thing. So I've had a little go solo through it too. But obviously the first time is always the most interesting, because you don't know what's on the other side of that card, and that's the thrill of it. But then when you do know, it's kind of making sure you can play the ultimate and most, I guess, I don't know what the word has gone from my brain.
There's like a main objective that you have to do, but you always have the option in the scenarios that I've played so far to sort of like bail out without completing that main objective. And so part of the replayability comes from the fact that, right, I want to just ace this. I want to get all of the things that I need to do to win the campaign. But you do have the option to take what little experience you've gained so far and leave without killing your character, essentially. And I guess it does have replayability, and it is, good. Well, it's good replayability to this game, but it's not a game you'd play over and over again, because you wouldn't. Essentially, there's like loads of mini games in it, so it comes with 3 scenarios, and you can replay each of those several times. So ultimately, for what is 30 odd quid, you're getting 3 games which you can play multiple times. So it's kind of good, and each game takes like 2 hours, I think, in my experience.
Here's a question that just popped in my head about Fantasy Flight. Do you think Fantasy Flight games are good because Fantasy Flight is a big company and they put a lot of money into good designers and they're genuinely good games? Or do you think Fantasy Flight games are good because there's so much money and power behind them that they can release almost anything and people are going to buy it and love it?
No, but that doesn't mean the game's good. If people are buying a game, doesn't mean it's good.
So
if I take each game on its individual basis anyway. So if Fantasy Flight released a game, I wouldn't go, oh, it's Fantasy Flight, so it must be good. I'd be like, oh, what is this game? Is it good? Oh, it's by Fantasy Flight. That's should be how it works, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they're different because they have this very competitive. There's like a, and they are a money sink, but you kind of know that, I suppose, when you're going into it. And like you say, the whole LCG thing is interesting. I think there's a certain person it appeals to. I am one of those people. I like being, I guess, part of something that is still growing. And the fact that now, even though there's only 3 stories in that initial box of Arkham Horror, that I think we're up to like 11 stories now you can play that have been released so far, and people are making their own versions that you can download and play from online, which is really cool. There's a community already building there, and I think that's part of the whole Fantasy Flight thing, that people are really invested in what they want to do with it.
Because I've not got involved in that aspect of it at all, and I'm a bit skeptical about it, because and this is kind of funny, it ties into your point as well, Ben, because I wouldn't trust necessarily some person on the street it's not a very good term, but somebody on the street to like come up with essentially as good a game as a company who can afford to like really brutally play test the things to make sure it actually works.
Maybe I'm just constantly surprised that they can release game after game after game that people just fall in love with, but it's next level. So for instance, Star Wars Destiny, it was released and it's just taken off and it's everywhere, and it's
is it any good? I've not played it.
New decks. I've played it and I like it. It's not as good as Magic the Gathering, but it's better than the Final Fantasy game. It's better than Yu-Gi-Oh! It's better than Pokemon. It's good for a trading card game.
I think it's nice because it's got the dice involved as well, so it's kind of a different thing, isn't it? It's trying to fill a different market. And I've been intrigued by it. I really want to play it, but haven't got around to it yet.
But they released Arkham Horror so to me, this is what surprised me. So they've got Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror, and then they release another Cthulhu-themed game, which to me is a stale theme. It keeps coming out. And again, this game just takes off, and it's because
I think it's because it's good, yeah. I think this has stood out because it's a cooperative campaign play game. So I've sat around the table with the candles burning, and we're all wearing fedoras, and we're having the best time.
That's so you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, this, like you say, it kind of opens you up to a very role-play experience. And for people who don't maybe like rolling D20s, this is a really good like version of that for you to sit around the table and have quite a really horror-based role-play experience, which is rare to get that right. And Arkham Horror, this version, I personally don't like many of their other Arkham games, the Arkham Files stuff that they release.
I agree.
This is the one that actually hits it, and that's why everyone's gone nuts.
Should I play this, Dave?
Definitely. There's not a question in my mind. You should definitely give Arkham Horror a go.
I concur with Dave on that. I think you'd enjoy it.
Do you then think that the Rune Wars miniature game is going to be as popular as everything else they've released recently?
I think that's difficult because it's taken a different path. It's gone down the miniatures path, and I think X-Wing's done really well with that because it's you don't have to buy everything, and you kind of are building your own little fleet, I suppose. Whereas personally, it doesn't appeal to me. I've played Battle Lore and those sort of games, and I like those better than how this one looks, which is just Warhammer again, but through Fantasy Flight. I don't know. I don't know if I need that, but I'm sure it will appeal to miniatures wargamers in a slightly more accessible way.
Supposedly, it was stupidly popular at Gamma.
Stupidly popular. The phrase I heard was it went off like a frog in a sock.
There you go.
Who is giving you these phrases, Ben?
The Aussies who go to Gamma.
It's so good.
Well, when I first read that, I wasn't sure if that was a good or a bad thing. My first date, it went off like a frog in a sock.
Holy shit, that bad.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? I think there's a worry in the sense that a lot of the time, sometimes Fantasy Flight games don't hit as hard, or they start well, but as soon as they kind of fall down a little bit, they just get cut.
They must. This isn't a Fantasy Flight podcast, but they must release games that aren't actually as good, that just kind of gets forgotten about.
There's a lot of Netrunner World games that have been released that are kind of under the Netrunner umbrella, which aren't the card game, and
Android,
no one plays them really, as far as I'm aware. Like I've not seen anyone who owns a copy or has played a copy, even the people who love Netrunner. I'm
going to try and steer this back.
It's a good idea. We can have another podcast called Ben Hates Fantasy Flight.
Anyway, in terms of other long games, we mentioned this on the chit chat, but a suitable game is...
And a non-Fantasy Flight game.
Yeah, is The Colonists, which essentially took us... It's a game that you can play, what's the word, modular? That's not the right word. You can play it for as long as you want. Essentially, there's 4 eras, but you can stop after the first,
and you can
stop
even
after
jump
the
in
second.
and just play the third
Yeah.
in its entirety if you want.
That's what I meant by modular. Is that not the right thing?
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay, fine. All right,
But
it's a modular game.
We don't want to do a full description because you can listen to the chit chat for that.
Yeah.
But that is a crazily long game in the sense that it's essentially 4 Euro games back to back.
Yeah, and it only gets more difficult, like in terms of the choices you can make, and so it becomes a longer game.
But this
to
is
let you
like what
go.
I was saying with Arkham Horror. It's almost like they had a game, and then they released 3 expansions with the base game.
Which is great.
Which
I
is
love
awesome,
that.
and you have it all in one.
That is great.
I much prefer that.
I feel like that's. I know I've mentioned this before, but video
What's
games
the
industry
cost of the
they've kind of
colonists,
gone really,
I wonder.
Oh yeah, how much is it?
I got my copy for $110.
Well, there you go.
In British money,
In British money is like
65.
after Brexit. That's like what?
I think it's the other way
So
around.
I think there's a cost issue there in the sense that
£10.
the first Arkham Horror only costs you £30, I suppose.
Yeah, 30
and then
pounds.
you can buy all these. I've bought everything of Arkham Horror for less than £100 so far. So, and there's a lot of game. That's 11 games and replayable, and I'm building decks. So I think if you spend £100, you're getting your money's worth.
I'm kind of curious. I know we'll talk about Connors in a second, but Arkham Horror. So you've basically committed to that game. For the
I'm in.
next few...
I've gone in hard.
But I liked the first one, but I would never because my friend Luke also did that. He's bought everything. He's only played, to my knowledge, the first campaign because we've played it together, and yet he's bought everything. And I was like, well, that I don't know if I would ever do that
Because Fantasy Flight, and it'll be impossible to buy it if you don't buy it instantly.
That is actually
The reason
why
I
you
did it
bought anyway.
that way is because, like I say, there's a deck building element to this game, and for me to play the game with 3 players, which is how I wanted to play it, if I bought, instead of buying another starter box set, which I didn't want to do, if I bought the rest that had come out, then I could build a 3rd deck. So I thought that was the best way for me to go about it without having to double up on the boxes.
Oh, that's clever.
Is that accurate? Is that like the
Yep.
you can actually do?
You can actually do
just
that, yeah.
by buying the expansions. You
Yep.
you enough
So if you've
cards to
bought
build
up
one
to where we are now, which is the Arkham Express, if you've got that far, then you can make a 3rd deck to play the game with. So
interesting, but
which
you
is
could
really
also
good.
Just buy the second core set.
you
as
could
well.
buy a second core set if you like doing that sort of thing. Well, that's another Fantasy Flight, I guess, issue people have is that they don't release enough for you to build how it can be played in the first box, but I suppose the cost level keeps it lower.
To be a 2-player game.
I think it works well
like
at
a
2,
3-4-player.
definitely, and it is definitely a different game at 3 players. That doesn't make it a worse
Yeah.
game, but it's really interesting. I think it probably makes it a little bit more difficult. But if you want to play with 2 of your mates who all equally love Lovecraftian lore, then it's really a good way to do it. And I had a much better time playing with 2 friends than if I'd maybe just played with myself and 1.
Yeah. Well, anyway, going back to the colonists, the reason I sort of bring it up is because I just wonder, does a game somewhat lose its, funness if it takes too long? Because here's a good example. I played the Game of Thrones, the board game, and I think I actually played it with you, Ben, and you, Dave, actually. Yeah, we all played it.
That was the game that we... after 5 hours, there was not one election.
Yeah.
On the tracks, we didn't even have that card. Never came up.
And I enjoy the game, but it takes too long.
Definitely.
It would be a much better game if it was half the time.
Well, Diplomacy is just like the Game of Thrones card game, but without all that
all of that.
American crap thrown in.
Well, that's interesting because now you're making me want to play Diplomacy.
It's really good.
I do really want to play it. I think, as we've mentioned before, and bringing it back to the other long games that we've played and why some of them are so popular, if you add a cooperative element to your long game, you definitely make it better, I think, because you're allowing all the players to be part of that same experience and not feel like one of them spent all this time and still is a loser. So, either you're winning together or you're losing together, and that's a really good, fun experience for everyone around the table. If you have a long game that you play for 5 hours and you've lost it or you've come last, I don't know, maybe you've enjoyed the process of getting there, but still you're going to, maybe you feel like you've lost a bit of that time you've invested. I don't know.
Well, that makes me think then if you lost, would be like...
Yeah, but you've lost together, so there's that whole we did it, or we got this close, or we were only 1 clue away from winning, or something like that. Then I think there's a bit of conversation that happens with it. If you're just the only person in last place, you get a pat on the back, maybe. Better luck next time.
A chocolate frog in a sock.
Yeah, for your troubles. And you think, I don't know, it's definitely a different experience, isn't it?
I'm wondering if you can turn diplomacy into a cooperative game, and the goal is to get world peace.
That sounds awful.
But then I suppose, like Ben was talking about, then there's a story in that as well. So even if you have lost, well, maybe, America is on fire because of that. And that's kind of cool, but that you've made that happen.
Get political on this podcast.
I'm not saying I want to burn America. But you know what I mean? Like, there's an element. And the same with the mega game is like, we didn't win a mega game. No one wins a mega game, but you enjoyed the process of all the things you tried to do.
Oh, that's where I went wrong then. I was trying to win.
No, you can't win it.
Oh. Anyway, actually, you're doing a mega game soon, aren't you, Dave? Or have you done one?
Yes, I'm doing City of Shadows in May, which I cannot blooming wait. So we're going back to 1940s, I think. And we're doing like a city of prohibition and stuff like that. Watch out for a guy called
Hitler.
Watch out for a guy called Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear he's trouble.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Mega games can actually be counted as a long game as well. Have you played a mega game, Ben?
I haven't.
Are you interested in that kind of thing? Because especially if you said you like diplomacy.
Oh no, I'd love to play a mega game.
It's quite. I guess. What's the scene like over in Australia for mega games?
I didn't know about them until
there definitely is one.
And told me about it on the podcast.
No, there's definitely a scene. I was talking to some people who were making a pirate mega game in Australia. So that is, I think it was Sydney. So get yourself over there. Make that paper pirate hat. Get to it.
I do like Meg. I think the thing about mega game is obviously it is a long game. It takes a whole day. But it doesn't feel like it takes as long as it does because it's all action all the time. Mm-hmm. And you literally feel like even though you have a sort of structure wherein you'll have sort of 10, 15 minutes to do a thing and then there'll be like another phase and you'll have 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do that. That 10 to 15 minutes is so full of, at first, like planning and then later on confusion, which makes it all just like a big sort of fun bundle of craziness, and you will get stories out of that. There's no winning, as you said, but you'll get like crazy fun out of it. So I recommend you do one actually, Ben. It's a bit like I said, it's a bit like diplomacy. You'll get a good story out of it, even though it'll take all day. But you'll come back and you'll talk about things that happened in it, which I'm assuming is the same with diplomacy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Like, do we think long games are a good experience if done right? Like, I guess they are.
I think so. I think people are getting more out of it these days, and being that Pandemic Legacy is still number one on Board Game Geek, that's a definite testament to this idea of longer games and playing games that matter a bit more. So the consequences of a game you've played rolling over into the next game, that's really interesting, and I think that's why it's appealing to people. And as a role player myself, I really like that element to these games. So that's nice. So I think there's a lot of good happening in the long games that I will continue to kind of follow and see where it takes us.
I've also noticed a lot of games incorporating kind of saving mechanics.
Fabled fruit.
Yeah, so you can save a game and then come back and resume later on, as opposed to just leaving it on the table and then no one touch the table. You can, which is quite cool. I think Time Stories, despite the fact it's a horrible game, its save mechanic in the box is pretty cool.
I forget how, because I never actually had to save the game. I was just trying to get through it.
Just get over and done with.
Well, somebody posted recently on a Facebook group that I'm following that they played Time Stories. They were doing their fourth run, and it was just becoming tedious to play the same thing. So actually, when you're playing a long game, because you're not actually doing that good at it, and you just have to repeat several bits, it's probably not as good. But I'm with you, Dave. I think it's a very exciting time to be interested into these sort of campaign, longer than just a single session kind of games, because there's a lot happening in that side of it right now, and I think it's gonna go to some really interesting places. Was there something you wanted to say, Ben, regarding that?
Well, speaking of the long game, what's interesting coming out of this year's GAMA trade show is that the publishers themselves within the industry are playing the long game, in the sense that people are aware that there's a kind of a board game bubble at the moment, and everyone's worried it's going to pop. And that publishers are actively now trying to play the long game and make sure that this bubble stays inflated as long as possible. And they've actually, a lot of publishers have come out and said this year that they're now cutting back on how many games they're going to release each year. Because if you've noticed over the last couple of years, it's just exploded, and there's too many. It's become to a point where there's just too many, and that they're worried that good games are being lost because there's just too many. And I remember a lot of games that were kind of announced. I remember Essen a few years ago. There was games like Orcs, and Lords of Ziddit and things like this, the Queen games, and they just disappeared. They never really saw the light of day properly. And also games like Crazy Carts from last year. And stuff like that. That there's a few games that somehow manages to get the focus. Things like Terraforming Mars and Great Western Trail and stuff that capture people's focus, and then they do really well. And then there's a whole games that suddenly get lost. So I think that companies are now going to focus on that, which I approve of. I think there should be less games a year so that we can, as customers, focus on those ones as well.
100% agree on that. Point.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I can't see any reason to try and sort of like flood the market with all these games, because as someone who is sort of interested in actual designing games, there is only a finite number of like sort of ways that these game mechanics can sort of interact with each other. And if you're releasing like 1,000+ games every year, including on like Kickstarter, which is going nuts, we're going to hit that point where we've kind of done all of the obvious sort of games that can be created, and everything then is just going to be sort of a take on another game, and it's going to become a less exciting industry to be a part of. And there'll always be games that come out that are like, oh wow, that's a completely new genre and it's going to change things up a bit, but they'll become fewer and far between.
What's also a lot of publishers are talking about this Gamma, which is quite interesting, is more pushing towards the bricks and mortar stores. So it was announced either last year or the year before that
was this the Asmodee thing?
There were numerous publishers were going to give different prices to bricks and mortar stores, to online stores. And when you register with the publisher, this is in the States, it hasn't come over here, but when you register with the publisher, you have to register as an online store or as a bricks and mortar store. And if you're a bricks and mortar store, you cannot sell online. But the pricing structure is different. So it's to try and level that playing field. And then they're continuing on with that kind of theme this year. And they're doing more and more kind of like play experience. So even Yellow is doing one with King of New York, King of Tokyo. And so they've got this, it's an organized play kit, they call it. And so you get 2 copies of the game and heaps of promo materials. And so it means that when you go to a bricks and mortar store, you're going to get an experience, something that you can't get online. And I think that's a really good way to push the market as well, focusing on that actual experience and not just trying to buy a board game for as cheap as possible. You want people to go and support the community, the gaming community, and get involved. And so I think the publishers have, unlike a lot of industries where when there's change, people resist the change and kind of fight it, they're trying to adapt and
before it
becomes a problem, before the bubble bursts. I think they're trying to get ahead of the game, and that's really refreshing to see to me. And this is funny because I can imagine a lot of people who love games are like, well, this is ridiculous because it means that games are going to be more expensive. As someone who buys a lot of games, I don't mind if I can't buy that stupidly cheap online game anymore, because it means I get to support the local shop, which is going to then hopefully promote play areas where I get to meet more people, which is what playing games is all about, playing with people. It's not just about getting cheap games online. And I know that I fall into the trap where I've got games that I still haven't played yet because it's one that I was interested in and it was cheap, so I bought it, but I never played it. So even as someone who's a consumer of games, and someone who even works in the industry and doesn't want games to get more expensive because it will be harder to sell, I still think it's a good idea.
Me too. I mean, it's quite nice to hear it put that way. I'd never thought of, I never thought about that's why they were doing the mortar, brick and mortar sort of special discounts or like, certain prices, things. Because when it first was sort of announced that, they were doing the different prices and you're not being able to sell, and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like a great deal for companies that want to sell in store and online. But actually, if you're talking about it just kind of let's calm it down a bit, and let's focus more on maintaining the community that we have, rather than just trying to get as many units as we can out the doors on the shelves of people and just raking money. That's actually quite interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, what an exciting time.
Well, hopefully it pays off.
I don't want the bubble to burst.
Me neither. And it is certainly a big bubble. But my science teacher told me that the things to keep a bubble going is moisture and to keep it away from heat. So that's my advice to the board game industry.
Top tips.
All right, thanks
whatever
for that.
That's useful.
Thanks for that, Russell.
And on that note, it's time for this week's giggle. Now, you don't know what this game is.
No.
And
I
hope you're excited about it.
Now we're in the same location. I don't want to see your computer, Russell.
Yeah, so just stop staring over at me
The
longingly.
virtual
I'm
eyes.
just gonna stare.
So if Ben wins, I'm
My
just
still
I'm gonna
picture.
keep that whole cheating thing going.
Yeah.
Right, Ben was looking. Ben's definitely looking.
All right. So this is a game we've played before, but with a slight twist. It's called Start Player. But
Stop.
so you remember that game we used to play?
Oh my god!
Sure
I was
do.
So bad at Start Player.
Oh, here we go, Dave. Do you hear that? Is that music to you?
Oh,
Isn't
well,
it?
I don't know.
However, this is
I'm
not
worried.
going to be a simple the way we did it
It's
before.
called Last Player because that I'm great at.
No, it's essentially it's all of those quirky rules that have started appearing in all these games that are out recently to determine who is the start player. Now, funnily enough, I just feel like it's worth mentioning. There's a game out there which isn't really a game, but it's a sort of like a game tool that comes in a little deck of cards called Start Player.
Oh, that one's.
And it's
Start
essentially just a bunch of cards that you just turn over one, and ultimately it'll do something silly and determine the start player of the game. For example, it might be the person who drew this card is the start player. It might also be the person, with the last person to actually have a drink or something.
Is
the
this
last
just for
player.
people who haven't heard of Schwazi?
Yeah, Schwazi, by the way, is the ultimate start player. But sometimes, a
Schwazi is
game
the best.
has its own, thematic reason for choosing a start player. So what I'm going to do, instead of giving you the actual reason and then asking you to find the game, because this is going to be easier for some of it if you've actually played the game and the other person hasn't. I thought the best way to do that is to present to you a game that you both don't know, and then both of you take a stab at what the actual start player mechanic
Oh my gosh,
is.
that's amazing.
And the person who gets the
I like that.
closest, as determined by
you.
me,
Oh, I see. This
is
is Cards
gonna
Against
win.
Humanity. This is just a judge-based game. Don't like it. Nah, not playing.
well, it's this or nothing.
Okay.
And that's the end of the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed listening.
See you next time.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so the way that I'll do this, I've got quite a good list of these games, and I'm just going to list one. You both have to honestly tell me if you've played.
Okay. And do all of these games have a mechanic which is not just randomly select for first player?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're all quirky enough to be included.
All right. Yeah.
All
Cool.
right.
I love it.
So
So if we played the game, we have to say no. I've played it, even though I can't remember because I Schwazi every
if
game.
you've played it but you genuinely can't remember the start player, that's also fair. We're relying on your honesty a bit in this game. Anyway, so just without further ado, let's get into the game. So the first one I'm going to present to you is a game Le Havre. Have either of you played this game?
No, I've played
I have.
the app.
You have, Dave. Do you remember the start
And I think
player
the start
mechanic?
player rule is the person who lives closest to a body of water or the sea
That is
or a
correct.
dock or something.
That is correct, but that doesn't
So,
count, unfortunately.
No points for
No points.
being knowledgeable about these things.
No points for being honest.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice one, David.
Okay, not to worry. We've got lots more where this came
Honest
from.
boy.
So the game's for sale.
No, I've played that and I don't remember the start playing.
Have you played it? Dave?
Yeah, I don't remember that. I have, but I also do not remember the.
Okay, so just to give you, Dave, the first attempt at this, what would you have a guess at what the start play mechanic in this game is?
I'm going to say that either the person with the largest or smallest house.
You're going to have to...
I'm going to pick... largest. The person with the largest house goes
That's
first.
what I thought it was going to be. So I guess, as I'm going second, I'm going to say the person with the most expensive house.
Ooh.
Well, one of you is actually dead on, and it is Dave.
Yeah, I
Dave
thought...
takes the
Hey,
first one.
perks are going first.
Yes.
Well, that was a very thematic one. You know, it fits in with the
Yeah,
I'd also
I
game.
like that one.
to hypothesize that the most expensive house would also be the largest.
Well, you might be wrong there. Depends where it is.
That's
Not
true.
sure about
you
that.
might have a tiny little shed made of
If you live in London, mate, that ain't happening.
All right,
Yeah,
so that's
that's true.
1-0 to Dave. Now I think we could go for a best of 5, depending on the number
Wow.
of games of these, because I haven't got an exhaustive list. But see. All right, so the next game is Chrononauts.
Okay.
Have you
Nope,
played this
haven't
game,
played it.
guys?
I've played it, but I don't remember the start player. I just remember that it's not a very good game.
That is correct. 1 to Ben.
You get a point.
No, so you're both... Okay, so in this instance then, Ben, you are losing, so you'll get the first guess.
I have no idea. It's a Looney Labs game, so I'm going to say the last person to watch Back to the Future.
Dave,
Ooh,
what would you take a guess?
the person who got up latest.
Okay, well, none of you are correct.
Ah,
But the actual one is to guess the actual time.
Oh.
And the person who's the closest wins. So from that, I think it's actually nobody gets points.
We are both
yeah,
quite off
fair.
Yeah, because I don't
Both
think, even though
completely
Dave's was
out of the
time
park.
based, it was not
No, that's
that.
fine. I accept that.
Yeah, but it was good guesses actually, and I'm hoping maybe this will inspire some designers out there who are listening. Interestingly, in my research of this, it does seem like this is actually more of a recent phenomenon with the choosing of a start player other than the youngest player goes first or something.
Oh, rightly so.
Yeah. So now, have you both played the game Redacted?
I've not played
Nope.
that.
Redacted. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of setup of this game, it is essentially a game about sort of hidden information and spies, and that is all I'm going to give you. But in this game, we will go. Ben goes first again because he's losing.
So Redacted. It's the last person to delete something.
Dave, what's your guess?
I'm going to go with the person wearing the most black-coloured items.
Oh.
Now, both of you were wrong.
Well, no surprises there.
But I think Dave might have this one because
Oh,
the actual guess is whoever can do the best secret agent drinking a martini impression.
Okay, yeah.
And Dave's dressing up in a black suit does seem to make that one more likely to be the case. So
boom.
Yep.
So that does give 2 points to Dave, and we'll go on to the next one. Now, Champions of Midgard.
Not played it.
Not played
Nope.
it.
Was that on tabletop?
It was on tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember that, I don't think they actually mentioned it.
Yeah.
But so do you know the game?
It's about Vikings.
It's about Vikings. It's about sort of like fending off, attacking things while trying to, gain resources and stuff. Very, Viking-y game.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, I can't give anything else away. But Dave will... No, Ben can go first.
I'm still
Ben
losing.
goes first, yeah.
He's by more now.
Yeah.
I reckon it's going to be like the person who does the best Viking impression or Viking roar, something like that.
Dave.
Longest beard, surely.
Oh, God.
Longest beard. Well, unfortunately, you're both wrong again.
Oh.
And actually, none of you were quite close to it. The actual one is the person who was born furthest to the north.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
That's good. I like
it's
that.
quite a neat one, that one. So it's still 2-0.
Man, I would do really well in Australia.
This one might swing it, though. Chinatown, the game Chinatown.
Not played that.
I've played it. It's brilliant. I have no idea how the start player is.
Okay, well, in this one, I think Ben, you'll get to go first. But this one's quite neat.
There you go.
That's not a clue. That's just
What's the game about? You're like
Chinatown.
building
It's a negotiation game. It takes place in, just a random Chinatown, and you are essentially buying property locations and then buying actual types of shops and trying to collect sort of, sets of tiles that are next to each other so you can build up businesses and gain lots of money. It's essentially a property sort of development game.
I don't know. Is it done based on your Chinese New Year animal? something to do with that.
Dave?
Oh, I know, I quite like that. No, I think he's got it with that one, surely. The last person to eat some Chinese food.
No, both of you are wrong.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
What was
give it
yours
to
again,
Ben.
Ben?
About the New Year, Chinese New Year.
Dave was slightly closer, but I still don't think he gets a. I don't think he gets a point.
Oh,
because it's
come
actually
on.
the person who last visited their city's Chinatown.
Oh yeah.
Which is
Oh,
a fairly obvious one. I thought you, but then again, it's obvious if I know the answer. I've just got right in
That's
front of me.
very
But I thought that was quite a nice one
That's
because.
how I used to work in Chinatown. I would have always played first in that game.
All right, we'll do an easier one for
So
Ben.
bad. What happened
right,
to was this review helpful? I
We'll,
like
we'll,
that game.
we'll, that I'm sure that'll make a return. All right,
Someday.
so Terror in Meeple City / Rampage.
I feel like this is a Monster Raw one. I feel like I've played this. If it's not, that's my guess. But I feel like it's got something to do with roaring like a monster or something like that.
Was that you saying you think you know it?
Yeah, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that's my guess.
That's essentially you saying I'm wrong.
If I'm
or
right, it's
I'm right,
because I
but I'm
know
not
it.
counting it.
If I'm right, it's because I know it and don't count it.
Okay.
But if I'm wrong, then I don't know.
You know what it is? It is a Monster Raw
Yeah.
one.
Okay. Cool.
But I feel like we should give you a point anyway.
No, I feel like I'm.
don't give him sympathy points. What is this?
This
It's not
is
charity.
a judge-based game. It is flawed, but it's beautiful. All right, we'll do one more.
That means I can't win.
Yeah, exactly. We've had quite a lot though, to be fair. I'll do this one because
You've
I
had
like
your
this one. I think
chances.
this is my favourite one. Bruges, the game Bruges.
I know that one. That's the last person to have Belgian chocolate.
Yeah, that's. a
Oh
good
wow!
one.
Boom.
That's it. All right. Well,
There you go.
Annoyingly, Ben did win on actual knowing the knowledge. But
Hey,
Dave actually
no,
won the
he
game.
doesn't. I won on knowledge
the game,
and the game.
The game was more of a
Even with the
creative...
combined points, if we were playing it, that knowledge would also win you this game. I still win it, Russell. You can't take that away from me.
Dave, you've won. You've won. That's all I'm
Well
saying. Well done, Dave.
I'm opening the
I lost because
champagne.
of my honesty.
Yeah, but your honesty is crucial.
I'd rather win.
Well, in this occasion, you were too honest.
Yeah.
I would advise lying a bit more, fudging the truth a little bit more next time. Okay, that was.
Okay, I'll fudge the truth. That game was really fun. Thanks, Russell.
Oh,
It was a bit. I think it wasn't. I don't know. I thought
I
some of these
enjoyed
were
it.
more obvious than they. I think some of these were more obvious in looking at the thing. I was like, oh, that's a really obvious one. But obviously, if you don't know it at all,
Yeah.
the game at all, makes it quite difficult. But then if you played the game and you know it, you're more likely to know the start player
That's
anyway. Anyway, I hope at least you learned something during this game. That was my aim.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
I
was good.
did.
And
I think
really
it
do
showed
love-
me that I probably should use Schwazi less. Oh,
Yeah, well, actually, I think Schwazi is only used for me when it's a game that says randomly choose a start player or decide how yourselves you want to pick a first player, and we'll just go Schwazi, easy. But I actually really like this start player mechanic. I think it's great, and I love it when they do it really
when they're thematic,
fitting
I
in
think,
with
it really
exactly,
makes a difference because it just gets you into the right frame of mind.
exactly.
Yeah, less Schwazi.
Yeah, so anyway, that's it for this podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed listening to us talk about the long game and, hating on my giggle. But basically, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so via by the usual means, Twitter, Instagrams, Facebook. Dave does it better than I do. And also our website for chitsandgiggles.com. We have lots of previous podcasts. If you've enjoyed this one and you fancy going back and listening to some more, please do that. And also comment, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Other than that, that is it. And we will all see you, I'm sure, on the next podcast.
See you later.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Chits and Giggles podcast. For more reviews and podcasts, visit forchitsandgiggles.com.